Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Well, as we head into the new year, we are surely one step closer to the reunion we've all been waiting for. The returned Lionel Johnson reuniting with Roboute Guilliman. And so today, I wanted to revisit that topic and discuss the top 5 issues we have to see them discuss. Now, this isn't necessarily issues as in a problem between them, merely 5 particular things that are important to see them address. I'll throw out a general spoiler warning to begin, as today I will be referencing events from across the Warhammer 40k universe, so you have been warned. But with that said, let's waste no time and just jump straight in. Okay, so the most anticipated reunion in 40k history since the Emperor faced Horus to end the heresy. And I really don't think that's an understatement. The reunion between the returned El Johnson and Roboute Guilliman is one of epic proportions. The two have an untold amount of things they need to discuss. Honestly, it's a conversation that needs to cover several chapters at least, if not a book in itself. But what are the major things we need to see them talk about, to address? The questions or issues the returned Primarchs might have with the galaxy around them and with each other. Well, while there's surely countless things, as we've discussed before, I've narrowed down 5 of the most important in my mind at this time. So let's begin with number 1, the fate of the Lion, his disappearance after the heresy. I am fully expecting to see Lionel Johnson leave Terra fairly quickly after the heresy, if we ever do get a scouring series of course. We know thanks to Russ's Primarch novel, he'll argue with the Wolf King in the depths of the palace, consumed by grief. And we also know he'll be disappeared by the time Guilliman announces the Codex Astartes, the breaking of the legions. As Russ commented within his Primarch novel, how proud El Johnson was of his legion, and how he would have been against Guilliman's measures. So he'll be gone for a pretty pivotal time in the lore, in the Imperium's history, with no real explanation. And I think just what happened to the Lion will surely be one of Guilliman's biggest and most immediate questions, having surely greatly missed his abilities and presence during the scouring. And so that'll lead to the Lion having to talk about the fall of Caliban. How truthful El Johnson is going to be here is hard to say. Part of me thinks Guilliman's the only person he can freely be honest with. A fellow Primarch, the only fellow Primarch at this time. But then on the other hand, the Dark Angels Codex really pushes El Johnson's secrecy, showing that some habits and natures remain. There's 2 possibilities. El Johnson will either claim he returned to Caliban, finding it overrun by traitors, not technically a lie but hardly the truth, or he will truly speak the truth, that Luther had betrayed him and fired upon his fleet. Either way, that the last thing he remembers is being in combat and then waking up 10,000 years later. Bearing in mind Guilliman has encountered Cypher, unmistakably Dark Angel, seen the gigantic sword upon his back, and denied him entry to the Emperor, you have to think the Fallen are going to come up in some way. The fate of the Dark Angels Legion. Especially as surely Guilliman will have seen the countless reports of the dubious and suspicious actions of the Unforgiven, the Sons of the Lion. It just really remains to be seen how L. Johnson is going to address this matter. And it all comes back to Caliban's fall. Will he continue to keep things hidden, elusive, a la the Lion of old, or totally honest, with the only brother he has left? And just when L. Johnson did leave Terra, will affect a lot of other talking points too. Was it before or after Guilliman took over as Lord Commander from Rogal? As issue number 2 for me is Guilliman's position as Lord Commander, Imperial Regent. If the Lion left Terra originally before Guilliman took over as Lord Commander, it will absolutely flare up some old animosity within. Yes, L. Johnson was hoping for another brother to be alive. Yes, L. Johnson will of course put grudges aside and work for the Imperium's humanity's survival, as he did in the Heresy. But make no mistake about it here, he did not appreciate Guilliman's ambition, his seeking to be an emperor himself in L. Johnson's eyes. Finding Guilliman playing emperor, titled Imperial Regent, for all its necessity, its virtue, it will absolutely ignite a little of that old animosity within. There is no doubt about it. It's impossible not to. Sure, he'd know in advance from Dante, know all about Indomitus, the Primaris, but all the while it would be building subtly within L. Johnson's mind until they finally met. The great Lord Commander, the Imperial Regent, Roboute Guilliman. And to make the storyline even better, perhaps L. Johnson may not have left before Guilliman's appointment as Lord Commander at all. Maybe he'll leave Terra because of it, being so against the announcement of Roboute taking over from Rogal that he left the throne world as soon as it was announced, adding even more history to simmer beneath the surface. Again, let me be clear here, of course they will work together for humanity and the Imperium. They will even be pleased to see each other. Of course they will, but you cannot disregard the history that is there. Even with L. Johnson's modern day regrets, there will absolutely still be a part of him within that bridles at seeing the grandeur of a self-titled Imperial Regent, Roboute Guilliman. The Lion serves the Emperor, and the Emperor alone. He won't be bending any knee to Guilliman, that is for sure. And a big part of this is obviously going to be Guilliman discussing his actions since taking the position, and his struggles with this new Imperium. How he has tried to fix things since returning. Angry as L. Johnson might be with some things, he will be in complete agreement with Guilliman's dismay at what's become of their father's empire, as we've seen from his reaction within Son of the Forest. And the Lion may hate it, but the propaganda value of another Primarch returned will be huge. Guilliman and the Imperium will absolutely want to promote that across the galaxy. Now, in speaking of Guilliman's position, issue 3 just has to be the Codex Astartes, the breaking of the Lion's Legion. It has to be discussed. It has to be. There's no two ways about it. Leman Russ knew L. Johnson would oppose it, And we saw in Son of the Forest the Lion's immediate anger at news of it. And my legion, he manages. Rearranged by order of Lord Guilliman, Zabriel informs him neutrally. All the legions were dissolved into individual chapters. The Dark Angels remain, as a force of 1,000 or so, with many other successor chapters affiliated to them. Guilliman, Lionel Johnson hisses, his grief abruptly overtaken by blistering rage. Never content with the work of others, he even wanted to improve on the designs of our father. I should have dealt with him when he first raised his hand to me on Macragge. Why could it not have been him who fell, instead of Sanguinius? Now, L. Johnson hasn't reformed his legion, as it would be a bit universe-breaking, even though I think he absolutely would want to. But we do know he travels amongst the Unforgiven chapters, so it remains to be seen just what and how that relates to his leadership. However, regardless, he will be angry about the breaking of the First, and Guilliman will know it. He'll know he'll have to discuss it. Maybe even expect to take a punch for it. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see one. However, moving on, issue number 4 is the status of the Emperor. As I said, we know the Lion does everything for his father. Completely committed. Indeed, in his very next breath after the outburst at Guilliman within Son of the Forest, he stated his desire to head to Terra, that he must see the Emperor. I must go to Terra. If my father is still on the Golden Throne, as you say, then if there is any scrap of life in him still, any spark of his consciousness left, I will see him. And their father's status will obviously be a huge discussion point with Guilliman, with Roboute having to relay the Emperor's seeming ascension, his actions across the galaxy, and Roboute's own personal disappointment upon his reunion within the throne room. I don't think the Lion will react quite as emotionally as Guilliman may prefer, disowning their father almost as Guilliman has, as L. Johnson is the more rational on their father's ambition, and has his own relationship with him. But how he reacts to the Emperor actually possibly becoming a god is going to be interesting. Indeed, within Son of the Forest, he seems to be becoming a bit accepting of the notion that if anyone could be described as one, it would be his father. And L. Johnson absolutely has to visit the throne world. He has to have his reunion within the throne room. But now, finally, issue number 5, the Lion's new psychic power. It's not something the Lion would be able to disguise from Guilliman, even if he wanted to, having the unmistakable aura of the forests of Caliban around him now. Indeed, the Dark Angels Codex describes it the best. Any who knew L. Johnson in the days before, precious few though they are in M41, would see that he has become a more fey and unsettling presence. At times, particularly when he is lost in brooding contemplation or gripped by great anger, the shadows seem to deepen around the Lion in sympathy with his mood. That's not something Guilliman is not going to notice, and notice pretty damn quickly. L. Johnson will have to explain his awakening, the forest pathways he uses, and acquiring the Emperor's shield within, surely leading to a very interesting discussion on what Guilliman makes of it all, We'll see if they both share my opinion that it's some anticipated development by the Emperor, a second psychic stage of the Primarchs, why the Emperor placed the shield within, for L. Johnson to acquire when he was ready. Again, it's a topic I can't wait to see them discuss, to see what Guilliman's opinion of it may be, if he thinks it is indeed a future stage for all the Primarchs that was intended, or just particular for L. Johnson. And could Guilliman even be wary of it? Who knows? There's only one way to find out. But so for me, these are the top 5 issues we need to see the Primarchs discuss. The Lion's disappearance and the fate of Caliban, Guilliman's position as Lord Commander and Imperial Regent, the Codex Astartes and the breaking of the Lion's Legion, the status of the Emperor, and the Lion's new psychic power. As always everyone, what do you think? How do you think the conversations will go regarding these issues? And what other topics would you like to see or expect to see the two Primarchs discuss? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. A huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.